If you want to continue to follow our adventure, click subscribe. So you don't miss anything, click the bell notification. Lives on the road, subscribers and followers. There are a lot of folks who comment that really show that what I'm trying to do, which is provide the reality, that they're really catching on. They want to come out here and they really want to understand the reality. I wanted to understand the reality of living out here also. And one of the realities is, for me, we have to live on a budget. I don't understand why folks think that budgets aren't necessary when you come out here. Well, maybe I do. I mean, I see a lot of people romanticizing this lifestyle, that you come out here, automatically it's going to be cheaper because you don't have rent. Well, you can make up for rent pretty quickly with one key subject: travel costs. I budget $160 a month. I don't even know if anybody really realizes how little that money is. It's very little. It's $160 a month. I used to spend more money on gas going back and forth to work, you know, a year and a half ago, when I was employed, in a month than I do out here. And so that means I can't just go traveling endlessly. Well, David will. He is a guy who I've been communicating with probably for a month now on the channel. He seems very serious about coming out here and living, and he's really trying to grasp a lot of things that, at least I'm saying, I don't know about other YouTubers, but at least about what I'm saying, he really seems to be understanding, and he seems like a pretty intelligent guy. So he's given me permission to read one of his comments. I assume that means I can read two comments, because the very next day he commented again, and I wanted to go through this. So David says, nomadic life is a lot like chess. If the goal is to slowly hop from North Dakota to a location deep in New Mexico, you have to have the entire journey mapped out. Otherwise, you might end up burning a lot more fuel than the budget allows. I experimented with mapping out a trip spanning 3 states and quickly discovered this is not easy and very time consuming. Anyone thinking of hitting the road and fuel cost is an issue should do this exercise a few times. If nothing else, it will give them a good idea of where they can go as opposed to where they'd like to go. Okay, so at least 2 times now, this has really proven out to be a true statement for Carolyn and I. When we got to Virginia last year, now last year we had not learned how to research campgrounds near as well as what we do now, that have all the resources that we need. Basically our whole year planned out last year. We were going to go through Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia, and then we were going to circle back around South Carolina and down into Florida. So we had the whole thing mapped out. We didn't even leave the state of Missouri, which is where we left our house. We didn't even leave the state of Missouri before the whole plan was nearly destroyed. It flooded in Missouri the day we were going to leave. We could not leave our house. We were stuck there. We had to stay another 3 days. Well, the rain was so bad throughout the country on our planned trip, which was to go to Tennessee. We decided to head on down to Mississippi, which means now we didn't even have a campground planned out. So we're actually trying to find campgrounds as we're heading down to Mississippi. Well, I mean, we found 2 and we were able to stay in Mississippi for a month. Well, then we ended up going back up to Tennessee, got to Tennessee, and we had planned to stay at Ray Springs, and a lot of YouTubers have stayed there. It's a very nice campground, very nice. Well, they shut it down on us the day after we got there because of homeless activity and drug activity. They shut it down. Well, then we went up into Kentucky like we had planned, and they didn't have internet. Not realizing how bad it was not to have internet just yet, we stayed there to 2 weeks, and we ended up spending a fortune in gasoline because every day we would have to go up the hill, about 7 miles, about 15 miles an hour because it was a very bumpy, gravel road, and post our videos. And we would sit there for a couple hours uploading videos, answering questions. Well, then we came down, we went into Virginia, same scenario there, no internet. Well, that's when we learned we have to have internet. So we had planned to stay at 2 other campgrounds after that. Both of them didn't have internet, so we skipped it. Fortunately, we had the whole Mississippi thing that took up the time that we didn't have to stay at these 2 campgrounds. So that was just a lucky chance. Everything's messed up. Only reason it's working out is because of luck. So had we not had Mississippi, you know, the whole Missouri flooding thing, had we not went to Mississippi, we would be a month ahead of where we needed to be, so before we could get to Florida in October. That was the plan, be in Florida by October so we could stay relatively warm. We were going to follow the weather. Well, we're in the same situation now. We had planned to come down in Nebraska from South Dakota, come down into Nebraska, hang out at this campground for 2 weeks, and then come to these city parks. There's, I think, 3 or 4 city parks that we're going to stop at. 2-week campground that we were going to stay at didn't have internet. So we just lost 2 weeks. That means we're 2 weeks ahead of schedule being at this one. We should be here 2 weeks from now, but no, we're here now. That means that we're going to end up going into Florida faster than what we want to be. We don't want to be there before October because first you got the hurricane season, and the longer you can postpone to going to Florida, the better off you're going to be not hitting hurricanes. So we don't want to end up in Florida way too early. This means we're going to probably end up back in Mississippi and staying in Mississippi again, which wasn't on the plan this time. Now, the second thing he says, and I want to read this real quick. He says, I was thinking after a few years, a person will have mapped out enough places she can go and cover a year of traveling. Your video reminds me that this is not the case. What was available in the past may be closed, or length of stay may have changed, or weather may have access impossible, and so on. Places off the list because of no internet may not have it. New places to buy food may pop up. Old stores might have closed. It is the ever-changing landscape, so need for research will never completely end. And that is true. And the real quick thing I got on this one is when we were down in Florida, we were talking to the rangers, and we were at a campground, and he says, yeah, I think we're going to end up closing this campground because of vandalism, and we just can't continue to maintain it. It's out of the budget, and people are just tearing it up all the time. The campground that we liked and that we would like to go back to may not be there next year. So that means that that's going to limit the amount of places we can stay this year in Florida that has access to water and internet and all these things that we need. So, good point, David. Thank you very much for the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Click like if you like the video. And happy